somebody mentioned 5 or 10 minutes ago, are you doing Docker in Docker? And I was not doing Docker in Docker, but I'm going to show a kind of Docker in Docker in a way. Let's look at this command line. So first I'm gonna exit, so I'm back on my host, and I do docker run -it -v/var/run/docker.sock :/var/run/docker.sock. So I'm bind mounting var run docker.sock in the container. What is var run docker.sock? Remember when I said the Docker CLI is a client and it's speaking over an API to the Docker engine. So it's like you're connecting with curl and doing things. It's a socket, but by default it's not a TCP socket. It's a Unix socket. If you haven't met Unix sockets before, it's exactly like a TCP socket, except the address, instead of being an IP address and a port, it's a path on the file system. But it works the same way. Like you connect to it and then you communicate with it. So this is the control socket of the Docker engine. So here I'm taking the control socket of the Docker engine, the keys of the kingdom, and I'm putting that in a container. And that container is going to use an image called Docker. And that image contains a Docker client. That's the main thing I want. And now I'm going to do Docker version. And if you look at the output here, we see client version 17.10.0 CE, and the server is 17.11.0 CE ERC4. Little explanation. The server, that's the server running on our VM. The client, it's the Docker client that we just downloaded in the Docker image. Why are these versions different? When you do docker run docker, you get a Docker image with the latest CE build. The latest. It's called technically the Edge build. So the Edge build, there was like one every month, and it's like 1709, 1710 for October, 1711 will be the one of November. So that's what we got in the image that we just downloaded. On the VMs that you have here, since I love living dangerously, I installed by default the latest ERC version. So what you have is a ERC for the November version. So that's why it's different. But, and now that's the part that I find extremely fun, if I do docker ps, I get a bunch of containers, and I know like this display is big and hard to parse, etc. But you probably noticed that those are the containers that are in fact running on the host. So I am in a container running Docker commands, and by doing that, I'm controlling the Docker engine running outside. So I'm controlling the Docker engine that runs myself. So if I want, I can docker rm-f a bunch of things. Yay, that's great. Let's remove a few more. This is so fun. Exactly. Yeah, you can imagine what's going to happen if I do docker kill dfae, so that's my Docker container. Well, I'm back on the host because I just killed the container in which I was.
You were running inside that container. Is it container in a container?
No, so it's not a container in a container. It's just a container that has all the rights to control the engine that is running itself. So if I was thinking it in cloud terms, this is no different than I'm on EC2 and I'm on an EC2 instance, but I have my AWS API keys there. So from this EC2 instance, I'm able to list other instances and history buckets and everything I want. And so of course, if I'm on an EC2 instance and I do like AWS EC2 terminate instance, and I terminate the instance where I am, then I'm going to be logged out. And so this pattern, like there are a few things, like I show this and it's kind of fun and it's good because we are almost at the end of the time, so it's good if we have things to keep us awake. But it's interesting for a few reasons. First, it shows that we can control Docker and containers from within a container, and it's kind of obvious in a way because this is an API, so you can talk to the API from anywhere. But what's really interesting is that it's really easy to do it. You just have to bind mount that socket, and that's it. You don't have to worry about like credentials or network or etc. Since it's a unique socket, it also means that this container doesn't even need network access. It's another little added bonus. And last but not least, it means that there are many scenarios where you will want to create containers from another container. The most frequent situation is I'm doing CI, so I want to run my tests in containers, but I want my CI to itself be in a container. And very often, the answer, that the first thing that we think is, oh, let's use Docker in Docker. And yes, you can do that, but generally you shouldn't, because Docker in Docker has lots of little tweaks and side effects, etc. So it's way easier and less risky to use, I don't know how to call that, Docker by Docker maybe, or so you're just well, instead of creating child containers, you're creating sibling containers because you're controlling the Docker where you are.